Creator, back again with another episode of how to make a classic shooter on Scratch. Today we will be creating the enemies and their functionalities along with touching up some old scripts. Now, to begin, we are going to create a new block for the player sprite known as shooting with an input with a colon or semicolon. Fire rate, add an input, fire rate. There we go. Now, move everything that you put in this green flag into this and put this under that. Now, your code should look something like this. Now, drag this fire rate pink block into the circle where it says wait seconds and put fire rate in between it, so that way it waits a certain amount of seconds that you put into the fire rate input. You can put whatever you want in here, which makes the coding extremely customizable for all your players who want to mod your game. Now, as you can see, something clearly goofed up. Oh yeah, must have accidentally tampered with the costume. My bad, guys. Now, we have a little guy running around, shooting, just like he was before, just with a little bit more optimization in there for more customization. Now, let's create a new sprite. Call this enemies. Now, your sprites don't need to look very fancy, and neither are mine, so we're just going to create a enemy with some pretty basic looking patterns. Zombie shooter game, kinda. So, scary zombie with like a dark green, pale green skin, looking like Shrek. And we're gonna give him red eyes. Ooh, scary. He looks more like an alien. But never mind that. Name you whatever you want to call your enemy, name it that. Name it, like, I'm gonna just name it Zombie 1. Because this is how we're gonna be animating our little guys. Make sure to set it to whatever size you want. That way it feels right in your game, inside your game. Now on with the coding. When green flag clicked, hide. Now, we're not going to have any functionalities just yet to spawn in the enemies, because for now, I care more about actually coding in the script and testing it every once in a while. Create a new block. Call it enemy randomizer. Roam without scream fresh. This is going to be important to spawn in enemies smoothly and instantly instead of having them pop up spontaneously all around the screen, because that doesn't look very good. We need a new variable. Call it choice of enemy for this right only. Now in the beginning, we're going to set choice of enemy to pick random 1 to, depending on how many enemy types you want, set the ending number to that number. Set choice of enemy to 1 to 3. And now we need to create, now, depending on the number, you need to create a certain amount of new enemy types. So I'm going to create a runner, like a runner zombie with like bigger eyes. And his arms sticking out farther. With purple skin this time. And then a robot. I want to make him a Cyclops, because Cyclops robots are awesome. Now you can skip ahead to where we actually start coding in the new enemy sprite and like new enemy code. Sorry for background audio. It's still relatively for like and doesn't have to look very nice, but we care more about scripts. Now we need a brand new variable ID for the sprite only. Now we need to put ifs in here. If we need to put if else, actually, my bad. If choice of enemy equals 1, set ID to zombie 1. You can probably see where this is going. Choice of enemy equals 2, set ID to runner 1. Now, I'm typing in custom names because in order for the spawning to work, you're going to need the enemy to switch to its exact costume through its ID. So, I recommend you copy and paste whatever ID or costume name you have for your enemy into this ID block. So that way you don't end up misspelling it and then the enemy code just doesn't work. If enemy choice equals 3, robot 1. Create a clone of myself. Now this picks between 3 different enemies to spawn. Now we need a when I start as a clone. We're gonna drag this block off somewhere so we have enough room to code. When I start as a clone, show switch costume to ID. Let's go on and test the basic part right here, which is enemy randomizer. Would you look at that? Every time we click this button, it switches to a different costume. They're stacking on top of each other, but oh, don't you worry, we'll fix that in just a little bit. Now, we need a brand new if else. If ID is equal to zombie 1, create a new custom block. We're going to create a custom block for each enemy, so that way each enemy has its own tick. Name it zombie tick. Now we do need the enemies to have a health when they spawn in. And I know you feel tempted to put it in the beginning of the script, but don't. Put it in this one instead. Create a new variable and name it enemy HP for the sprite only. Now, if ID equals zombie, we're going to set the enemy HP to 5. If it equals runner, we're going to set it to 2. And if it equals robot, we're going to set it to 12. This is a robot and he's made of metal, duh. Now, let's go ahead and start coding in that tick. Repeat until enemy HP is less than 1. This. And bat. And for now, we're gonna place a delete this clone. Because in episode 3, I plan to add particle effects and just a whole bunch of polishing to the game to make the game feel more refined and fresh, to give it that game feel. You know, to keep the player entertained somewhat. Now, zombie tick. Pretty simple code. Point towards player and move 3.5 steps. You can toy around with these values until you feel they are good enough for you. Now we are going to try and spawn a zombie. Oh, would you look at that? We have him running around, chasing the player. Now, oh, the bullets didn't just pass right through him. That is just fun. Now here's the kicker. You're probably asking, if the health variable is for the enemy sprite only, then how are we supposed to inflict damage onto the enemy through the bullet or player sprite? Here's the thing. We're not going to. The enemy will take damage by itself inside of its own sprite. Alright, but before we code in damaging enemies, we're going to code in the rest of the IDs. So, runner 1. Now, I will put all the code on screen in the best way I can, so that way you can see everything that we've coded so far. Because I can go a little fast, I just don't want the video to be too long and boring for you guys. Alright. Have you got it copied? That's just amazing. Now, I will say, each enemy does kind of feel samey, because all we're doing is just making them move around at different speeds. Now that is no good at all. That's a no goodie, and that's not very good. So we're going to create a new list. Call it position enemy bullets for all sprites. Now make sure in the beginning of the game to delete all. So right under the script, put delete all of enemy position bullets. Now the enemy will get some bullets. And we're going to make it specifically for the robot, because the robot is too cool to not have something cool to go with it, like a bullet attack or something. I am going to alter the appearance of the robot to make it fit actually shooting at you, so that way it just doesn't look like a robot with 2 arms shooting at you with just random things. I mean, it would look like it's coming out of his eye, but I think him having it with his eye is cooler. Yeah, we're gonna keep that in, except that I want to make it more obvious that he's gonna shoot at you by putting this little white dot in his eye to make it look at the player. Now, this part is optional if you want to code in the bullets or not for the enemies. But if you do want to code the bullets for your enemies, stick around. So grab the robot tick block. It's been a bit since I've coded this part for the enemy, so I might have forgotten some things. Alright. So put a repeat around this. It'll still go on forever, but this acts like our wait button to shooting at the player. Alright, so repeat 22 to 45. Wait 0.1 seconds. We're going to add 3 things to the list. We're going to add direction, X and Y position, and this will and we're going to need to create a new sprite, and we're going to call this enemy bullets. Now you'll see why we made player bullets and enemy bullets 2 completely different sprites. For that exact reason. To make it to where the player would know which bullets are theirs and which aren't. I'm going to give it this red ball appearance to fit with the robot. I will show you a trick to add more costume types to this list. I'm going to call this ball. Because baller. When green flag clicked, hide. And go to back layer. Now, when I start as a clone, show. Follow along with this part. This part's important. Point in direction, item 1 of position and bullets. Now, for the X and Y, set that to 2 and 3. So set X to item 2 and set Y to item 3. Now we're going to get to some delete 1s. We are going to use something similar to this when we're coding our loot, but loot will be in episode 3 with particle effects and all that. I'm trying to keep it consistent here. And now, repeat until put an or, touching edge, or touching player. Move 16 steps, relatively fast. And delete this clone. Now I do want to point at the player one last time, so that way it can get a somewhat accurate shot. I'm still deciding what I want to put in episode 3. Like, do I want to put particle effects and loot? I don't know. But this episode's been jam-packed with trying to code in enemy AI. It's not the most advanced. You guys might be smarter than me. And you can create your own AI for enemies. Probably a lot better than this. But I'm just going off what I've learned over the years. Or over the 2 years I've been on Scratch. Now, let's add a create clone of enemy bullets at the end. The order of scripts matters, guys. It really does. Now, let's click that let's click this. There's a zombie. There's another zombie. Another one. A runner. Would you look at that? He's shooting at us. That is a sight to see. We will touch this up in a future episode, because it is a little weird looking. But he's shooting at us, and that's just great. And all of this makes all of that. It looks and sounds about as simple as it can get. Now, thank you for watching. Leave a like if you want to see part 3 to this series, where we will add particle effects, loot, and some sound effects to make the game feel good, and also touch up the graphics a little bit, because no game is good without some good graphics, or at least graphics that look like they weren't made in MS Paint. Alright, that'll be it for today. Bye.